Yes, okay. Ram, Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. And they're all, the thing is turned off, right? The speakers.
The speakers, but I'll double check right now as soon as I position the camera.
Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram. Okay. Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. So that means now you've checked two, that means they're all done. Ram, Ram, Hare Hare.
Everything's on you live also, Maharaj.
Sorry, sorry?
Everything's on you also live.
Right, sure.
Yes.
Okay. Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare. Ram, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Ram, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare. Where the kata, or can you just put them just here? I'll use them for the Gokuleshwari, Haribol, Michael, Rishan, Rikshana, Raj, Yamuna, Haribol, Renesh, Ram, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare
The gate is not open for the devotees, so that's why no one's on Chaitya Maharaj. But there is a few devotees waiting there to come to the class. Yeah. Other bhaktis coming now to open it.
Okay, I see. Ram Ram Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram 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 Hari 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 Krishna Hari Krishna Krishna Ram Ram Hari 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 Krishna Ram Ram Hari 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 Krishna Hari Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Devotees, welcome. Tricky. Think that it'll be okay for 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Jana Balava Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramahang Saparabhrajacharyas Tanasishmad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki. Shri Giri Govardhan Ki. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki. Gaur Premanande. All glories to their Samo devotees. All glories to their Samo devotees. All glories to their Samo devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 29, Explanation of Devotional Service by Lord Kapila, Text 13. Salokya, Sarshte, Samipya, Sarupya Katvam, Ape, Uta, Diamanam, Na, Grinante, Vina, Mat, Sevanam, Jana, Salokya Sarshti Samipya,
Salokya Sarshti Samipya,
Sarupyai Katvam Apyuta,
Sarupyai Katvam Apyuta,
Diamanam Nagrinanti,
Yamanam Nagyanti,
Vinamatsevanam Jana,
Vinamatsevanam,
Salokya Sarshti Samipya,
Salokya Sarshti Samipya,
Sarupyai Katvam Apyuta,
Sarupyai Katvam Apyuta,
Diamanam Nagrinanti,
Yamanam Nagyanti,
Vinamatsevanam Jana,
Vinamatsevanam Jana,
Salokya Sarshti Samipya,
Salokya Sarshti Samipya,
Sarupyai Katvam Apyuta,
Sarupyai Katvam Apyuta,
Diamanam Nagrinanti,
Yamanam Nagyanti,
Vinamatsevanam Jana,
Vinamatsevanam Jana,
Salokya Sarshti Samipya,
Salokya Sarshti Samipya,
Sarupyai Katvam Apyuta,
Sarupyai Katvam Apyuta,
Yamanam Nagrinanti,
Yamanam Nagyanti,
Vinamatsevanam Jana,
Vinamatsevanam Jana,
Salokya Sarshti Samipya,
Salokya Sarshti Samipya,
Sarupya Katvam Apyuta,
Sarupyai Katvam Apyuta,
Diyamanam Nagrinanti,
Yamanam Nagyanti,
Vinamatsevanam Jana,
Vinamatsevanam Jana,
Salokya Sarshti Samipya,
Salokya Sarshti Samipya,
Sarupyai Katvam Apyuta,
Sarupyai Katvam Apyuta,
Yamanam Nagrinanti,
Yamanam Nagyanti,
Vinamatsevanam Jana,
Vinamatsevanam Jana,
Salokya Sarshti Samapya,
Salokya Sarshti Samipya,
Sarupyai Katvam Apyuta,
Sarupyai Katvam Apyuta,
Yamanam Nagrinanti,
Yamanam Nagyanti,
Vinamatsevanam Jana,
Vinamatsevanam Jana,
Salokya Sasti Samipya
Salokya Sasti Samipya
Sarupya Kadvam Apyuta
Sarupya Karvam Apyuta
Dinamanam Na Kriyanti
Diyamanam Kriyanti
Vinamat Sivanam Janaha
Vinamasyavanam Jana Salokya Sasti Samipya
Salokya Sasti Samipya
Sarupya Katvam Apyuta Diyamanam na Kriyanti
Diyamanam Kriyanti
Vinamat Sevanam Jana
Vinamat Sivanam Janaha
Mataji's.
Salokya Sasti Samipya
Salokya Sasti Samipya
Sarupya Katvam Apyuta
Sarupya Kadvam
Diyamanam na Kriyanti
Diyamanam Kriyanti
Vinamat Sivanam Jana
Vinamat Sivanam Janaha
Salokya.
Salokya
Living on the same planet.
living on the same planet
Sarishti.
Sarashti
Having the same opulence.
having the same opulence
Samipya.
Samipya
To be a personal associate.
to be a personal associate
Sarupya.
Sarupya
Having the same bodily features.
having the same bodily features
Ekatwam.
Ekatvam
Oneness.
oneness
Api.
Api
Also.
also
Uta.
Uta
Even.
even
Diyamanam.
Yamanam
Being offered.
being offered
Na. Not.
not
Grinanti.
Vidanti
Do accept.
to accept
Vina.
Vina
Without.
without
Mat.
Mat
My.
my
Sevanam.
Sevanam
Devotional service.
devotional service
Jana.
Jana
Pure devotees.
pure devotees
Translation. A pure devotee does not accept any kind of liberation. Salokya, Sarshti, Samipya, Sarupya, or Ekatwa, even though they are offered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Chaitanya teaches us how to execute pure devotional service out of spontaneous love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Shikshastika, he prays to the Lord, O Lord, I do not wish to gain from you any wealth, nor do I wish to have a beautiful wife, nor do I wish to have many followers. All I want from you is that in life after life, I may remain a pure devotee at your lotus feet. There is a similarity between the prayers of Lord Chaitanya and the statements of Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Chaitanya prays in life after life, indicating that a devotee does not even desire the cessation of birth and death. The yogis and empiric philosophers desire cessation of the process of birth and death. But a devotee is satisfied to remain even in this material world and execute devotional service. It is clearly stated herein that a pure devotee does not desire ekatwa, oneness with the Supreme Lord, as desired by the impersonalists, the mental speculators, and the meditators. To become one with the Supreme Lord is beyond the dream of a pure devotee. Sometimes he may accept promotion to the Vaikuntha planets to serve the Lord there, but he will never accept merging into the Brahman effulgence, which he considers worse than hellish. Such ekatwa, or merging into the effulgence of the Supreme Lord, is called kaivalya, but the happiness derived from kaivalya is considered by the pure devotee to be hellish. The devotee is so fond of rendering service to the Supreme Lord that the 5 kinds of liberation are not important to him. If one is engaged in pure, transcendental, loving service to the Lord, it is understood that he's already achieved the 5 kinds of liberation. When a devotee is promoted to the spiritual world, Vaikuntha, he receives 4 kinds of facilities. One of these is Salokya, living on the same planet as the Supreme Personality. The Supreme Person, in his different plenary expansions, lives on innumerable Vaikuntha planets, and the chief planet is Krishna Loka. Just as within the material universe, the chief planet is the sun, in the spiritual world, the chief planet is Krishna Loka. From Krishna Loka, the bodily effulgence of Lord Krishna is distributed not only to the spiritual world, but to the material world as well. It is covered by matter, however, in the material world. In the spiritual world, there are innumerable Vaikuntha planets, and on each one the Lord is the predominating deity. A devotee can be promoted to one such Vaikuntha planet to live with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Sarshti liberation, the opulence of the devotee is equal to the opulence of the Supreme Lord. Samipya means to be a personal associate of the Supreme Lord. In Sarupya liberation, the bodily features of the devotee are exactly like those of the Supreme Person, but for 2 or 3 symptoms found exclusively on the transcendental body of the Lord. Srivatsa, for example, the hair on the chest of the Lord, particularly distinguishes him from his devotees. A pure devotee does not accept these 5 kinds of spiritual existence, even if they are offered, and he certainly does not hanker after material benefits, which are all insignificant in comparison with spiritual benefits. When Prahlad Maharaj was offered some material benefit, he stated, "My Lord, I've seen that my father achieved all kinds of material benefits, and even the demigods were afraid of his opulence. But still, in a second, you have finished his life and all his material prosperity." For a devotee, there's no question of desiring any material or spiritual prosperity. He simply aspires to serve the Lord. That is his highest happiness. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Bhastya Chadeshatarne Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchkapacharubhyas Kripa Sindhu Bhyavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, devotees, this is a really, outstandingly important verse. In fact, I would have to look to check actually, but it may well have been quoted by Srila Rupa Goswami in Nectar of Devotion. In the one chapter early on, I forget what the chapter number is, but it's early on, in which he talks about how devotional service is higher than liberation. Yes. So there he quotes a number of verses, actually. He quotes a number of verses, and when we did our Nectar of Devotion course, then We went through all those verses. I think we went through all of them. All those verses which are in different ways making the point that's made here, that a pure devotee, and it may not necessarily just be pure, the most elevated devotees, but in general, devotees, sincere devotees, they're not interested in any kind of liberation. Even if the Lord offers it, that's what this verse says. If they feel that having this liberation might be helpful for my Krishna, my service, then they may accept it. But otherwise, they don't care. They don't care. They're not interested because they have the Lord. They have the Lord's service. And the Lord, and particularly his service, even if they don't have the Lord, I mean, in terms of a personal, direct, face-to-face relationship, even if they're like us, serving in separation, but as the devotees advance more and more in service in separation, then more and more they experience how this service, this devotional service, is so wonderful. It's incredible, actually. This devotional service is so wonderful that even though I've experienced some material enjoyment, we've all experienced some material enjoyment before coming to Krishna consciousness. Even if I have read about liberation and how it's something very special and something very much better than what material sense enjoyment can give, but still the devotee, sincere devotee, who is practicing nicely and making some progress, that devotee will also think that I don't need this liberation. If I ever think about it, I find it just disturbs my mind. And so I put it aside, and what do I actually do? I get back into service. Yes. So these things are being described here in some detail. Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he begins the purport by making the point that Lord Chaitanya has made the point in Shikshastakam in verse 4, na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavatam va jagadisha kamaye, maba janmani janmanishvare bhavatad bhaktir hoitaki twayi. That I don't need na dhanam, I don't need wealth, na janam, I don't need popularity, a following, something like that. People worshipping me, I don't need it. Na sundarim. Sundar means beauty. Sundari means feminine beauty. So I don't need, Prabhupada translates, I don't need a beautiful wife. So what do I need? What do I need? Do I need anything? What do I want? What do I need? Mama janmani janmanishvare. Birth after birth, birth after birth after birth. All I want is bhavatad bhaktir ahaitaki twai. All I need is your devotional service. Yes, all I need is your devotional service. causeless. There doesn't need to be a link between some feeling I have or particularly some desire I may have and the question, will I engage in service or not? No link like that. But rather, devotional service is just so nice that I'm just going to engage in it. We're told that Srila Prabhupada was once asked, somewhere in America, Prabhupada was asked that, what would you do if sometime you found out there is no Krishna? There's no Krishna. All there is just the world as we see it. What would you do? And Srila Prabhupada said, I would continue to engage in devotional service because it's so nice. It's just so nice that even if there's only one life and that's it, then what better thing is there to do than devotional service? Of course, obviously, it's not a real question of is there Krishna or not. Certainly on the level of Srila Prabhupada, but even just for us as aspiring devotees, faith is there, that Krishna is there. And even, I'm sure many, maybe all of us, probably all, have had different experiences of extraordinary interventions in our lives, which just left us convinced, wow, that was Krishna. Yeah. So anyway, so Lord Chaitanya, Srila Prabhupada's giving the example of Lord Chaitanya, who's basically saying that, in effect, he's saying that it's not just a matter of conviction, but devotional service is just so nice that I'm happy to be engaged in it life after life. As long as it's of that quality, ahaitiki twai, bhavatad bhaktir, ahaitiki twai. As long as it's pure devotional service, and there's no infiltration of some material desire that through devotional service I would like to get money or a member of the opposite sex or these types of things. Yes, so as long as one is actually performing pure devotional service, or even for us, something, sometimes pure devotional service, or something like pure devotional service, or doing our best to do pure devotional service, the experience will be oftentimes, or gradually as the devotee advances, always, this is just so nice. We know Yamunacharya, very famous devotee, actually a Sri Vaishnav, but anyway, he's in a very similar mood, or the same mood in many ways, shall we say, as the very advanced Gaudiya Vaishnavas, that in his youth, he was, or not just youth, but in his earlier years, up to maybe the middle of his life or something like that, he, it's a long story, but he became a king. He was not in line for that, but he became a king. And when he was a king, there was so much opportunity for material enjoyment, which he took. particularly engaging in illicit sex life. But then after some time, he became a devotee, and he became a pure devotee, and he gave up all of that totally. And so his famous prayer is there, that now I've experienced the nectar of devotional service. It's just so astonishing that when I think back and I remember how I used to engage in illicit sex life and how I thought that, oh, this is very nice. So when I think back and I remember whatever enjoyment I got through engagement in sex life, it seems so pathetic and pitiful and just hopeless that my lips curl in distaste and I just spit at the thought. It's just rubbish. That's very famous. So, yes. So Srila Prabhupada makes the point in the beginning of the purport here that verse of Shikshastakam, there's a similarity. There's a similarity between different statements that we find in Srimad Bhagavata. This verse here is not the only one which points out that the devotee doesn't or will not accept any of the 5 kinds of liberation, even if offered by the Lord. There are a number of verses and different incidents and situations in which different very elevated devotees express this type of idea. I think Srila Prabhupada gave in the purport, was it? Did he, or maybe he didn't? Yeah, he did, actually. Right at the end of the purport, but we can just mention it here, that Prabhupada gave the example of Prahlad Maharaj, who was offered whatever he wanted, just whatever he wanted, which obviously includes the highest level of material enjoyment. And even the Lord insisted and said, I want you to accept this. Even he insisted to the point, basically, of saying, I order you, you must accept this. You cannot refuse. But Prahlad Maharaj maintained the same position, that now I've got you, now I've got your service. I don't want anything else. Even if I were to get something else, then of course, having received something else, I would have to give some attention to it and get involved in it to some degree. So I don't want it because it'll distract me from my devotional service, which is the real source of the real nectar. Yeah. So therefore, when Lord Nrsimhadev kept insisting and demanded, you must accept something, meaning something material, then Prahlad Maharaj said, all right, if I have to do it, then please fulfill this desire, that my father, who was such a uniquely hellish person, and it may well be on the way there right now, please grant my wish that he will be saved from going to hell. And the Lord replied that don't worry, he's already liberated, along with 21 generations of your family to come, plus 22 21 generations from beforehand. They're all liberated, including your father. So this is Krishna consciousness. This is Krishna consciousness. This is such an important part of Krishna consciousness, because after all, we are conditioned. We have our attachments from before. At least we had our attachments to material sense enjoyment. We know what that's all about. But now we've been given the gift of Krishna consciousness. But even though we've been given the gift, sometimes the tendency may be there to give up the gift. This happens. Sometimes it happens that devotees become distracted. But if we keep fully engaged in devotional service, or as much as we keep engaged fully in devotional service, just as wholeheartedly as we are capable, then the more we will experience these types of ideas, like Yamunacharya spitting at the thought of sex life, and like that. And therefore we'll be able to carry on, even if sometimes there are some challenges. So anyway, Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he goes through all the different forms of liberation. The first thing to note, and the first one that Prabhupada addresses, is what is referred to in the verse as ekatva. Ekatva. It's, what is it? It's the second line. Two types of liberation have been put together in the same Sanskrit word, sarupya and ekatvam. Eka, obviously, I think even if you're Tamil, I think you know the word ache, don't you? You've heard it before? Ache. Ache minute.
1 minute.
Yes, that's right. Ache means one, so ekatvam. That twam means like ness. Eka, one, twam, ness, oneness. Yeah, as a suffix. Ekatvam. Like we talked the other day of binatvam. Bina means difference. Differentness. Bina means different. Binatvam. Nama namino. Yeah. That, in that case, there's no differentness between the name and the person whose name it is. Yeah, Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada talks about that first, and it's in the second paragraph of the purport. And he mentions, actually, well, we also mentioned the other day, and it's Yamunacharya, in fact. We quoted, I think it was Wednesday, that now that I've got devotional service and I'm experiencing the nectar of it, then Kaivalya narakayate. Kaivalya ekatvam, they're basically synonyms. Kaivalya means, Kaivalya. Kevala. Kevala means only. Yeah. There is Kevala Bhakti. It's a synonym for pure devotional, like Shuddha Bhakti, pure Bhakti. Kevala Bhakti is, a slightly different idea, but only Bhakti. Nothing else. Only Bhakti. Kevala Bhakti. Pure devotional service. So, So Kaivalya and Ekatwam, they are sort of directly or indirectly synonymous, in effect at least, in that Kaivalya means liberation and just only being fixed in that liberated state, whereas Ekatwam means oneness, which is, when you achieve oneness, if you achieve oneness, that means you've achieved Kaivalya, you've achieved liberation. But the devotees consider it hellish. Kaivalya narakayate. Narak is a Sanskrit word for hell. And if you've read Srimad Bhagavatam, but which I hope you have, and in fact, if you haven't, you've got to get going, all right? If you're partway there, go for it. Yeah. So, anyway, yes, the devotee is so happily engaged in devotional service, experiencing so much happiness, that narak, that hellishness, if you read the 5th canto, particularly the last chapter, oh, Krishna, Krishna. If you read the last chapter of the 5th canto, description of the hellish planets, oh my gosh, then you would know, don't want to go there. Don't want to go there. Yeah. However, even having said that, the bliss of devotional service is just so amazing, incredible, and inconceivably wonderful, that for the devotee who's experiencing that level of it, that if the Lord says to the devotee, I want you to go to the hellish planets to preach, the devotee does not say no. And the devotee doesn't even say, really? Oh, well, if you insist. The devotee doesn't say that. The devotee just says yes. And off goes the devotee to the hellish planets to preach. And even while there, the devotee is in ecstasy. And I've mentioned before, I don't know if you remember, I was present in Bhaktivedanta Manor when Srila Prabhupada was just about to leave England to go somewhere, to some other country. And he did a little questions and answers session. And one young lady, one young lady asked Srila Prabhupada, is there Krishna consciousness in hell? And Srila Prabhupada responded, very interesting intonations. Prabhupada responded, London is hell. That's coming from the realization of one of those devotees on that level of elevated, pure devotional service. So then Srila Prabhupada goes on to discuss the other four types of liberation are sometimes referred to as Vaishnav liberations, because devotees who are not on that highest level of pure devotional service, but they're on some level of some type of basically pure devotional service, they do accept them. They're Vaikuntha. They're states of existence in Vaikuntha, of having a form, sarupya, having a form like that of the Lord. As Prabhupada points out here, though when someone has sarupya mukti, means they go to a Vaikuntha planet, not Goloka. Not Goloka. You don't find on Goloka people with sarupya mukti, people who look like Krishna, and you have to think, boy, oh, is that Krishna? Oh, something like that. But on Vaikuntha, it is there, that you have to look closely. But if you do look closely, you see there's certain features on the body of the Lord, which the other devotees, the ones who have sarupya mukti, they don't have. Like the, what's it called? The tuft of hair? Srivatsa. Just a little tuft of hair in the center of the chest sort of thing. And you have to look to see. And then you see, oh, he doesn't have it. He's not the Lord. Because, there's an super interesting description in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, how when Gopakumar arrives in Vaikuntha, he lands, and he's there, right at the gateway into Vaikuntha. And he knows all about it. He knows, the Lord is here. The Lord is here. I can meet the Lord. Yeah. So other residents are moving around. Residents of Vaikuntha are moving around there. And some of them have sarupya mukti. And he sees them, and somehow or other, I don't know, maybe doesn't know about the specific differences or for whatever reason, but they look like the Lord, basically, and he thinks they're the Lord. And so he goes up to them, oh my Lord, starts offering prayers, offering dandavats and things like that. And the devotee tells him, no, stop this. Don't speak to me like this. I'm not the Lord. I'm just a very small servant. Anyway, so that's sarupya. Then there's salokya, to live on the same planet. Doesn't mean in very close proximity necessarily, but at least you're on the same planet. And interesting little point, Srila Jiva Goswami in Priti Sandarbha talks about the whole confrontation between the four Kumars and Jai and Vijay at some length, in some detail. It's very interesting. And he makes the point that, we all know the story, Jai and Vijay, they get cursed to fall down to the material world. Full stop. That was the initial curse. Just fall down to the material world. End of story. But then the Lord came and he wouldn't sort of cancel the curse, but he modified the curse. That, all right, you go either for 7 lifetimes as devotees or 3 lifetimes as demons. You choose. And they chose, as we know, 3 lifetimes as demons. And Srila Jiva Goswami discusses this choice they made. And he says this indicates that they have, Jai and Vijay, have Salokya Mukti, because they want to get back to the same planet as the Lord as soon as possible. And even if it means going through 3 lifetimes as demons and, whatever sort of horrible things are going to be there, but go through it to get back soon as possible. This indicates Salokya Mukti, or maybe Samipya actually, but he talks more in terms of Salokya. Whereas they could have taken 7 lifetimes as devotees and lived very happily as devotees in Krishna consciousness, like that. But they thought, no, we got to get back. We got to go there. We can't avoid it. We want to get back as soon as possible. Others, as we already mentioned, they wouldn't care. They wouldn't care as long as I can be a devotee. As long as I can be in Krishna consciousness, I don't mind, even if it's the hellish planets. So anyway, Salokya, and then Samipya is related to Salokya in the sense that Samipya means you're definitely on the same planet. There's no question of not being on the same planet. But now, instead of just being on the same planet, you are a personal associate of the Lord. And you are in his company. Regular company. Yeah. So that's the difference between Salokya and Samipya. It's an interesting point. And then, of course, what is there? Sarshti. Sarshti means opulence, like that of the Lord. Opulence like that of the Lord. Which can include power. Power is one of the opulences. Bhagavan means he who possesses bhaga, the opulences. So power is one of them. And another interesting point, it's at the end, at the end of Bhakti Sandarbha, Srila Jiva Goswami makes the point that actually so many of the devotees in Goloka, so many of them have sarshti, in the sense of being as powerful as the Lord. But because they're so absorbed in love for him, it just doesn't play a part in their lives. It doesn't play a part in their lives. And in terms of opulence, as in sort of the sense of wealth, then of course the point is that in Goloka, everything is made of chintamani, wish fulfilling. They can wish for whatever they like. If you're fond of Alfonso mangoes, you can have an unlimited, endless supply. If you just want to be a multi-billionaire or live in some giant palace, that sort of thing, you got it, just like that, bang. But they don't bother. They live in the village. And the cowherd girls collect cow dung. And they don't engage servants in doing it. They do it. Because it's all part of the way of life of devotional service to the Lord. And the nectar they get from that, the nectar they get from that is such that if someone tells them, listen, here's a Chintamani stone, you can wish on it, wish for something. They'll just say, I want to serve Krishna more. Basically like that. Yeah. So therefore, Lord Kapila says in the verse itself, a pure devotee does not accept any kind of liberation. Salokya, Sarshti, Samipya, Sarupya, or Ekatwa, even though they're offered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I just glanced actually at Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on this verse. And he says, well, we sort of mentioned it earlier, that sometimes devotees do accept these things, but only if they feel this will help me in my service to the Lord. I'll be able to please the Lord more if I accept this. Otherwise, who cares? They laugh at these things. They just laugh at these things. The most elevated, pure devotees, the devotees of Goloka. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any comment or question? Or not? No problem. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.